Welcome back, survivor. If you can hear this, it means you're still alive. This is Jack's Nightmares, and this is your next story. The cart we pushed wasn't made for this kind of weight. Front wheels shook every time we hit a crack in the asphalt, and the left rear one kept pulling us toward the grass, which made it worse. I was pushing from the back, Maya at the side, balancing a jug of water and a 5-gallon fuel can with both hands. We had a second cart behind us tied off with a rope. Inside that one, we had everything: blankets, canned beans, plastic sheeting, a crowbar, a mini stove, some holiday junk we found in an abandoned pharmacy, and a single bolt-action rifle with 5 rounds in a plastic bag under a fake-wrapped gift box. It wasn't ours originally. We found it stashed in a toy bin in a looted store near Castleton Avenue, probably a drop that never got picked up. I had been keeping track of the days. 89 since the main collapse. We'd been moving for 12. Staten Island wasn't quiet, but it was better than Brooklyn or the Turnpike camps. We circled back to the Matrix Global Logistics Park after skipping it the first time out of caution. It looked like nobody had broken in yet. Maybe too big, maybe too exposed. I had worked here for 3 months during college, sorting return items and stowing overflow during holiday peak. I remembered enough of the floor plan to know where the water lines ran and which internal cages could be locked from the inside. Maya wasn't sure at first. She hated warehouses. She'd had a panic attack once inside a locked UPS facility when we cut through to avoid a herd. She doesn't talk about it, but she gets tense in big enclosed places with too many shelves. But we needed something better than the cracked 2-story we'd squatted in last week. That one had a basement full of mold and a stairwell that creaked like a damn foghorn when you stepped wrong. The plan was simple: get inside, clear what we could, find water, check for power, set up a fallback, stay for 3 to 5 days, and move west once we regrouped. I didn't expect a safe zone to suddenly exist, but I had heard scattered transmissions about some guard units still holding ground near the New Jersey rail yards. No idea if it was real, but it was something to aim for. The entrance door to the fulfillment center was jammed. Not locked, just stuck. Years of overuse had warped the frame. I remembered that from when I worked night shift, back when the worst part of my day was walking home in the freezing wind, with my gloves still wet from tap water. I pressed my shoulder into it until something on the other side gave. A cart had been wedged under the push bar from the inside, probably as a crude lock. Someone had tried to secure this place before, but they hadn't stuck around. The air on the other side was stale. No smell of rot. That was the first good sign. We slipped inside one at a time, shutting the door gently behind us. I paused just past the threshold. It was dead quiet. Only the faintest hum from somewhere deep in the building. Maybe the emergency battery unit in Amcare still had a flicker of charge. I knew this building had backup systems, but no generators left running. No light came from the overhead panels. The only illumination was from slivers of daylight cutting through the plastic window strips near the upper loading bays. Enough to see basic shapes. Enough to walk without crashing into a rack. Maya and I had done this before. We had a system. She watched our rear. I swept the corners. No talking until we locked down a fallback zone. No food, no lights, no distractions. Only once we were safe did we debrief. That's how we survived Newark. That's how we avoided the gang outside Trenton. That's how we dodged a fast turn infected back in Queens, when it broke from a parking garage and nearly took out her ankle. You keep your routine, or you end up reacting to things too late. The first body we found was by the outbound loading chute. Male, late 20s, judging by the vest size and the jeans. Looked like he had bled out from a gut wound. No obvious signs of reanimation. I tapped his shoulder with the pry bar, ready to swing if he moved. He didn't. Dried blood all down his front. Eyes cloudy, mouth shut. Looked like he had been down for weeks. Then we found the first walker. Female, skin discolored. Both eyes milked over. She was just standing near the end of a conveyor. Not moving. That wasn't new. Some of them stopped walking entirely until triggered. We froze behind a rack. Maya tapped my arm twice, signaling she wanted to handle it. I stepped aside. She circled wide, careful not to bump the conveyor. Got behind the infected, held her breath, and struck hard with the tire iron at the base of the neck. It staggered, turned, made a wet sound, and she hit it again. Third time dropped it. She stepped back fast, not waiting to confirm. I came in, poked it twice to be sure. It didn't move. We waited a full minute to make sure no others were drawn in by the scuffle. Nothing came. I liked that about her. Maya wasn't fast, wasn't trained, but she didn't hesitate when the moment came. She was studying nursing before the world ended, and she still tried to make sense of people, dead or alive. When she kills one, she looks away just before the last hit, like she wants to remember they were human once but can't afford to freeze. I try not to think about who they were anymore. Not until I'm somewhere locked up, fed and warm. We haven't had many nights like that. We made our way up the north stairwell to the break room. It was clear. Chairs still overturned from the initial panic. Vending machines shattered. One microwave on its side. Coffee maker half melted. A single dry blood streak on the floor but no body nearby. The smell was bad but not fresh. I secured the door with a broken forklift pin and wrapped plastic over the lower door gap to block light and sound. Maya dug through her bag and unrolled one of our emergency blankets. I took out a marker and a clipboard, wrote down the first set of rules. No light after sunset. Bathroom breaks before lock-in. No movement past the mezzanine after dark. I taped the list to the wall using box tape scavenged from the corner supply rack. Maya watched, quiet. I could tell she thought it was a little obsessive, but she didn't say anything. That was our deal. I make the rules. She breaks the ones that don't make sense later. That night, we didn't light anything. Just sat with our backs to the walls, wrapped in fleece and plastic, listening. Around 1 in the morning, something knocked against one of the loading docks. Not banging, just a dull scrape. Wind maybe, or one of the infected brushing past. This far from the main city, they usually roam in small numbers. No herds, no shriekers. Those were more common in tight city corridors. Out here, most of the ones still walking were the slow type, decaying, weak, not able to climb or sprint. Dangerous but not unpredictable. We took turns sleeping. I got the first watch. She rested with her feet propped on an overturned chair and one hand curled around the tire iron. She twitched now and then, but didn't wake. I kept my eyes on the window slit, watching for changes in the light outside. At first light, we swept the stow zone, mapped out 20% of the northern side of the warehouse. Found at least 3 untouched product cages, full of overflow goods, gloves, batteries, portable chargers, medical kits, socks, even a small propane heater still in the plastic wrap. The water lines in the bathroom still had pressure, not a lot, but enough to fill a couple jugs. We decided to relocate from the break room to a small secure cage near the charger bay and began building a sleeping wall from plastic totes and zip ties. I knew how to use every piece of this building. I remembered which mezzanine corners had blind spots. I remembered which stretch of stow racks made noise if you touched the wrong beam. Maya followed my lead, but she was the one who flagged the fire door that wouldn't fully latch. She rigged it with a cannon string trap, loud if tripped, but simple enough to disarm. I wrote it down in our log. She started adding her own notes, mostly sarcastic. Don't drop a wrench at 3 a.m. again. Or, I still hate this place. Later that day, while taping off the cage, I found another sign someone had been here before. A broken hand radio stashed under a tote, battery removed. No blood near it, no body, just dirt and dust. Maybe someone left in a hurry. Maybe someone died somewhere deeper in the racks. We didn't search beyond our sector. You never sweep the whole warehouse. That's how people get trapped. When we finished setting up the cage, we finally ate. 1 can of lentil soup warmed on the camp stove. 1 protein bar split in half. I wrote down the calories, just out of habit. Maya rolled her eyes but didn't stop me. We still had 4 gallons of water, 2 sealed ration pouches, and a dozen loose snacks. We could stay here for 5 days if we stayed quiet. That night she tapped the wall and said, "You know we're not going to make it to Jersey, right?" I didn't answer. She knew I knew. It wasn't about Jersey. It was about direction, about movement. You stay still too long and the world finds you. Zombies, raiders, scavengers who kill for what's under your coat. We weren't trying to find heaven, we were just trying to stay ahead of hell. The morning routine started with a crawl out of the sleeping tarp and a 10-second stillness to listen. No voices, no echo, no dragging steps. I checked the noise traps Maya set with cans and twine, still hanging across the aisle entrance, still untripped. Then I scratched a small tick mark into the side of the cage frame with the point of a broken box cutter. Our third morning inside. Still alive. We didn't talk much at breakfast. One ration pack split between the two of us. Sips of cold water, no heat. Too much noise, even with the camp stove. I used a pair of scissors to shave down the plastic fork handles to make less clatter. Maya shook her head, chewing with her knees pulled up to her chest. She was wearing a mismatched set of thermals, one grey, one blue, both pulled from different holiday bundles on the mezzanine. She still looked tired, not from lack of sleep, from carrying the same worry too long. The plan for the day was to clear more of the west wing, finish mapping which cages were still locked, and get our hands on 2 more rolls of pallet wrap. The stuff was useful for everything: walls, barriers, wind blocks. I had seen co-workers back in the day build tents out of it during overtime shifts just to nap during breaks. Now we were using it to seal dead zones and hide our supplies. We took the north stairwell down to avoid making noise near the unsecured mezzanine where the roof hatch had banged on the first night. The north stairs had carpet strips on the edges, less noise, and no line of sight from the outbound docks. At the bottom I moved first, crouched, flashlight off. The light coming through the high windows gave just enough shape to walk without crashing into things. We knew the layout by now. Cage 33 was already ours. Cage 34 was half collapsed. Cage 35 had been locked with a zip tie from the outside, which told me someone had used it after the collapse and tried to keep something out, or in. We didn't open that one, no reason to yet. Instead, we focused on pulling more gear into the main cage. Maya found a bundle of emergency mylar blankets still in a plastic bag. I found a bin full of returned holiday flashlights and half a pack of alkaline batteries that still had a charge. We marked the aisle on our map with a blue dot for consumables and pulled the bin back with one of the rolling carts. The cart made a quiet squeak on the far end, so I taped a strip of cloth over the front wheel to muffle the sound. Around midday, we reached the section of the warehouse that had overflow toys, seasonal displays, and damaged inventory. We avoided this area earlier because of a collapsed section near the south wall, where a forklift had rammed into the racking before the collapse. The mess was bad. Boxes crushed, insulation torn, some broken glass on the floor. But it was also where the big bundles were kept. I spotted a pallet with unopened shrink-wrapped bedding. Cheap, probably polyester, but clean and sealed. That was gold now. I was cutting the wrap carefully when Maya grabbed my arm. She didn't speak, just pointed toward the far aisle. Something moved past the edge of the frame. Not fast, not loud, but wrong. We both dropped low and waited. After about 30 seconds, I saw it again. Male, wearing what looked like a courier's coat. Dead eyes, skin around the jaw torn. He wasn't groaning or making noise. He was just walking slow between aisles, tracing the pick path. We kept still, watched his movements. No other infected appeared. No human voices. I whispered, "He's just wandering, not tracking us." Maya didn't move. She whispered back, "Then don't give him a reason to." We waited 5 minutes before moving. By the time we stood up, the infected had vanished somewhere back into the deeper racks. We didn't follow. Instead, we carried the bedding haul quietly back to cage 33, circled wide to avoid the damaged section, and locked down for the rest of the afternoon. Back in the cage, we reorganized everything. I labeled supplies with colored tape, red for food, blue for water, green for meds, yellow for gear. Maya rolled her eyes at first but helped sort anyway. She added a corner with heat packs, bandages, and a homemade splint she made out of a cardboard divider and 2 metal brackets. She told me if one of us twisted an ankle again, she didn't want to improvise with zip ties. Later, I used the last charge on the small power bank to test a handheld radio. It was old, one of those 2-way walkie models sold in multi-packs during the holidays. I turned it on, flipped through the channels. Static. A click. One voice came through for a second. Male, maybe 20s. Said something about batteries, then cut out. Could have been close. Could have been an echo from another warehouse. I powered it off immediately. Maya didn't say anything but stared at me hard until I put the radio back in the metal bin. That night, while inventorying our battery stock, she sat on the floor beside me and said, "You think people like us are supposed to survive this?" I didn't answer right away. I knew what she meant. We weren't soldiers. We weren't cops or doctors or off-grid ranchers. I'd worked retail. She was a student nurse. We didn't know how to make traps or wire bombs. We just followed instructions, scanned boxes, filled shelves, studied, memorized things. That was it. I think, I said eventually, the ones who survive now aren't the strongest, just the ones who adapt without turning into monsters. She nodded slowly, said nothing else, went back to checking how many AAAs we had left. After lights out, we sat in silence for a while. I kept a small emergency light tucked under a crate lid with one corner lifted, just enough to glow faintly without lighting up the whole cage. Maya wrote something in a notebook she had started keeping. I didn't ask what it was. We all need something private. Around 2 in the morning, I heard something far off. A thump, a long drag, then a metal echo like someone pushing a cart across the outbound docks. I sat up, gently nudged Maya's boot with mine. She was already awake, staring up at the cage ceiling. We waited in the dark. Nothing approached, but it was the first time I had real doubt that we were still alone in the building. Morning came with a clear plan. We needed to check the outbound loading docks. We needed to seal off the south end completely. We needed to create a second fallback point in case our cage got compromised. That meant a new wall. We used a mix of pallet wrap, broken rack beams, and bungee cords to build a visual block around the back corridor of the charger bay. Maya suggested using stacks of foam mats to muffle footstep sounds in that section. Smart. We built it in under 2 hours. Near lunch, we risked a trip to the vending room past the mezzanine. It was a gamble. The floor up there echoed bad, and any fall could bring down half a row of bins. But I remembered from my seasonal work that a manager had stashed his extra snack stock in a corner locker above the staff bathroom. We found it still locked. Maya pried it open with a crowbar while I stood watch. Inside, 3 chocolate bars, a box of saltines, 2 expired energy drinks, and a bag of dry coffee grounds, all of it usable. As we headed back, Maya paused at the top of the mezzanine. She pointed at the far wall of the warehouse. A light flickered once. Not bright, just a tiny strobe, like a sensor tripped for half a second. We froze, waited. It didn't repeat. Could have been a battery dying, could have been motion, or someone testing the power grid somewhere deeper in. "We're not alone," she said. I didn't argue. Back at the cage, we unpacked everything, documented it, and updated the board. I wrote one new rule in red marker and taped it to the frame. Trust no movement past our zone. Keep fallback routes open. Avoid curiosity. Maya added her own under it. If it lights up, leave it alone. That night, we cooked noodles using the camp stove in a blocked-off corner, away from any draft vents. I watched the shadows dance across the totes while she stirred the water with the broken fork. We ate in silence. The warehouse outside stayed quiet. The cold helped. The infected moved slower when the air dropped below freezing. We'd seen it happen near Raritan. Walkers with black fingers, slowed to a shuffle. Easier to outpace, but still dangerous in numbers. Still, I couldn't shake the image of that light flicker. That tiny flash of motion-sensitive wiring that shouldn't have been powered. Not without someone triggering it. Maya noticed the way I kept glancing at the corner of the cage, toward the laminated floor map we had taped up. The flicker had come from the sector labeled E6, bulk seasonal returns, northeast side, far from our fallback cage, a zone we hadn't touched. She didn't say anything at first, just kept making tea with the last of the heated water and one of the dry lemon packets we found in a break room stash. When she finally spoke, she kept her voice flat. "You're gonna want to check it, aren't you?" I nodded. "Not tonight, but yeah, We can't risk staying here if someone else is using this place too. It wasn't about the threat of direct violence, at least not at first. It was about pressure. If someone else was in the building and didn't know about us, or worse, did, we had no way to predict what they might do. We couldn't afford to live next to unknowns. Not after what happened at the old Planet Fitness shelter in Brooklyn, when 3 kids snuck in through a rooftop vent and got themselves shot because the squatters inside thought they were looters. I didn't want to be on either end of that mistake. We waited until midday the next day before we made the decision. That morning was spent quietly reinforcing the secondary cage we'd rigged near the battery bay, just in case. We dragged foam toppers and shipping dividers across the concrete to deaden footstep noise, and taped down cardboard strips over problem areas where screws or broken glass might give us away. Maya double-checked the can and string alarm along the corridor, retensioned the wire, and added a second line higher up, just in case someone or something stepped through without catching the lower one. By 11 o'clock in the morning, we were prepped. We geared light, just the crowbar, a full flashlight with filtered lens, 2 water bottles, and the handheld radio kept powered off in my coat pocket. Maya brought the tire iron and a roll of tape. She tucked a small folding blade into her sock, not because it would help much in a fight, but because she said it made her feel better. We both agreed we wouldn't engage. This was a recon pass, nothing more. We moved down the north aisle, avoiding the mezzanine where sound echoed too far. Sector E6 was at the edge of the eastern floor, past the bulk returns, and directly behind a half-collapsed line of toy storage that had shifted after the roof leaks in October. Most of the racks in that area had warped slightly from damp insulation and time. Some had already dropped their top bins. We moved slow, breathing through our sleeves to block the cold air. At first, nothing looked different. Empty bins, torn bags, a few half-open totes that looked like they'd been left in a rush. Then Maya paused, tapped my arm, and pointed low near the far corner where the wall met the last row of pallet racks. Someone had hung a plastic tarp as a curtain, tied off with braided cords, and looped over 2 upright beams. It blended well at a glance, but was definitely not part of the original layout. The tarp moved slightly, not from wind, but from air pressure. Something inside was displacing it, slowly, not walking, breathing. We crouched behind a row of stacked Christmas lawn inflatables, still in boxes. I leaned over and whispered, "Could be someone sleeping. Could be a trap." Maya nodded. "Or worse, could be bait. You remember the bait bags outside that pharmacy in Jersey?" I remembered. Someone had rigged a snare under an open backpack full of sealed tuna cans. Cost a guy half his calf. We didn't mess with bags anymore. We circled around the far side and found a better angle. There was a crate turned sideways near the curtain, and beside it, a small propane stove, one of the same brands we had found in our zone. But this one had soot marks around the base. Still warm. Someone had used it recently. We didn't approach the tarp. No chance. We stayed behind the box and listened. After about 4 minutes, we heard a shift. Someone turning over on a makeshift sleeping pad, quiet breathing, one person, not infected, not growling, just asleep. We backed out slowly, didn't touch anything, didn't try to contact them. Maya wrote a note on a pack slip and slid it under a nearby bin. It said, "We're not here to hurt you, you're not alone. Stay in your section and we'll stay in ours. Don't light anything at night. No names, no threats, just warning." Back in our sector, we reinforced our cage door with 2 extra crossbars made from broken shelving rails and wrapped the corners with layered foam to absorb sound. That afternoon we discussed contingency options. Maya wanted to move within a day or 2 before anything changed. I wasn't so sure. The warehouse was stable. The stranger hadn't moved in our direction. If they stayed where they were, maybe we could last another week here, gathering more supplies before making a break west. It wasn't ideal, but the outside wasn't either. We didn't argue, not yet. We just made different notes on the wall, hers, ready to move by day 5. Mine, hold position until breach or activity. The truth was, neither of us knew what the right move was anymore. Everything outside this building had collapsed into chaos. The idea of wandering into it without planning felt worse than hiding near a stranger. That night, something changed. We were eating cold beans with dry crackers, sitting near the crate wall we'd built in the rear of the cage. The air felt heavier. Not pressure, not temperature, just a feeling that we were no longer buffered by silence. Then we heard it, a faint scuffle across the floor, not boots, dragging. Maya snapped off the camp light. We sat frozen. The noise grew closer, then paused. Then, the unmistakable sound of plastic crackling underfoot. Someone had stepped on one of the decorative yard lights we'd cleared from aisle 12. I could almost see the path they were taking in my head. They weren't the stranger, or if they were moving with a different purpose now. We didn't breathe. After a moment, we heard a low shuffle, closer to a foot drag, then a boot step, then a cough. Maya looked at me. "That's not infected," she mouthed. She was right. The infected didn't cough. They wheezed or hissed, but never coughed like that. This was someone sick, maybe injured, maybe worse. We stayed in silence until the sound faded again. Then we slept in turns. Light off, radio in hand. Ready. Morning brought more questions. The visitor hadn't approached our cage. No traps were triggered. No items missing. We swept our immediate area to be sure, all secure. But it didn't feel like a coincidence. Someone had moved through the zone, maybe scouting, maybe lost. It didn't matter. Now we were part of something unstable. We decided to do one final run before packing up. Maya argued for medical. I argued for fuel. We compromised. Hit the Amcare station for gauze, alcohol wipes, gloves, and any remaining freeze spray for pain management. Then we'd stop at the freight entrance to check for remaining propane cans. Maybe siphon some fuel from the parked trucks if the tanks hadn't been drained. The Amcare room had been mostly cleared, but we found a small stash under the sink, bandage wraps, a sealed eye flush, and 4 pairs of nitrile gloves in a torn box. Maya opened the cabinet above the desk and pulled out a clipboard filled with injury reports. Some of the dates matched the final weeks of operation. There were 3 panic leave notations and 1 suicide attempt logged, unsigned. She flipped the pages, then stopped and closed the folder. I didn't ask. We moved to the truck yard just before noon. There were 8 trailers still docked. 3 of them looked untouched. The rest had doors wide open or padlocks smashed off. We checked the side panels and found 2 that had auxiliary fuel ports. 1 still had pressure. I rigged the siphon hose while Maya kept watch, hand on the tire iron. It took 10 minutes to fill 1 jug. We stopped at 1. No greed, just enough to run the stove and charge the last battery brick. As we turned to go, we spotted movement at the far fence. A man, late 30s, bearded, wearing a parka 2 sizes too big. He saw us. We saw him. He didn't raise his arms, didn't say anything, just stood there, holding something low in his hand. A stick maybe, or a crowbar. He wasn't walking toward us, but he wasn't walking away either. Maya whispered, "Same guy?" I couldn't say. Maybe. Could be someone else entirely. We waited. He finally turned and walked the fence line south, slow and steady. We watched until he disappeared around the trailers. That sealed it. We were leaving. Not that day, but soon. The warehouse had carried us this far, but too many variables were stacking now, too many unknowns. And if the wrong person learned how well stocked we were, it wouldn't take long before they tried something stupid. We spent the next hour packing gear into tight loads, sorted the heaviest items into a leave-behind stash, just things that could buy someone else a day or two, if they found this place and weren't looking to burn it down. I wrote a short note and tucked it into the crate by the bedding stack. It read, "This zone was safe until it wasn't. If you use it right. Don't light fires. Don't call out. Don't try to own it. Just survive." We sealed the cage behind us, taped over the map, pulled the foam back from the floor and left the exits clean. No signs. No clues. At sunset, we sat on the mezzanine, watching the last light die through the high vents above the south loading bay. I said nothing. Maya leaned her head back and closed her eyes. "One more night," she said, voice soft. "Then we move." I nodded. But when morning came, something shifted. Not in the building, not in the environment. Inside us. Neither of us said it outright, but the moment we woke, looked around, and listened to the same dead air we'd been surviving in for 5 days, it became obvious we weren't ready to leave. Not yet. Not because the warehouse was safe. It wasn't. That line had been crossed already. It was just that we were tired. Not physically, mentally. Dragging our gear through broken streets again, squinting through freezing air, fighting to find shelter we might get to keep for 3 hours, maybe 3 days if we were lucky. It was too much. We needed something that didn't feel like survival. Not just hiding, not just waiting. Something dumb and pointless. Something human. Something that reminded us that before the world cracked open, there were still people in it who bought mugs shaped like hedgehogs and blankets with pizza slices on them. Something that reminded us we weren't just ghosts moving through old structures. I was the one who suggested it. I said we should go shopping. Maya laughed once through her nose, thought I was joking. Then I said it again, with a little more intent behind it. No grabbing only what we needed. No ration counting. Just a stupid errand to go get all the dumb crap we'd ignored for a week. Christmas returns. Overstocks. Inventory that nobody would ever scan again. Pull it all into the break room. Unpack it. See what was left in this post-apocalypse gift pile. "Fine," she said, "but if we find a vibrating foot massager, it's mine." I told her if she found one still in the plastic, I'd build her a throne out of dog food bags to sit on. She grinned. That was the first real grin I'd seen in a while, the kind that had teeth. We moved like scavengers but played like customers. Loaded 2 carts each with random sealed boxes. Returns, misscans, busted packaging, forgotten Prime bundles. Most of it had stickers half peeled or water-stained. Some were marked as damaged, but still had their zip straps intact. We didn't go far, just down into the fun zones. Toys, novelty kitchenware, impulse electronics, fitness gadgets, beauty bundles, and seasonal decor. Not because it was safe, because it was funny. By noon we had 5 carts parked in the upstairs break room. We pulled the blackout tarp across the upper windows and lined the vents with blankets. No light leaks, no noise carrying. Then we sat cross-legged across from each other and started opening one package at a time. First one was a foam gun, not a Nerf, a knockoff, huge and red and bulky with a magazine that had a crack in the middle. I popped in a few darts and fired one across the room into the coffee machine. Maya clapped once, then hit me in the shoulder. Lame. The next box had a collapsible salad spinner, still sealed. We both stared at it like it was alien tech. "People used to buy stuff like this?" she asked. "For what? Washing lettuce?" I shrugged. Maybe it had another use. I spun the handle and watched the plastic whine. The noise was awful, loud enough to make us both freeze. I stopped spinning. We listened. No movement outside. No echoes. Still quiet. I stuffed a sock inside it to dampen the sound. Maya shook her head, laughing quietly. Weaponized salad. Add it to the rules. Box after box came open. In one, we found 12 pairs of fleece-lined leggings, all leopard print. We each tried on a pair over our thermals just for warmth. They fit awkwardly, like wearing a blanket with a waistband. Another box had a Bluetooth meat thermometer and a waterproof speaker shaped like a watermelon. We found an entire bundle of themed mugs that said things like, "But first wine," and "Don't talk to me till I've slept 11 more hours." One tote held a jigsaw puzzle of a snowy cabin with half the pieces loose in the box. Maya opened it slowly, shaking her head. "Who has the time now?" "I mean, we do," I said, "if we don't die this week." She nodded. "Fair point." We opened a box that made both of us pause. Baby clothes, 6-piece pack, onesies, tiny socks, a toy ring that jingled when you shook it, still tagged. I could see the way her eyes changed. The moment something behind them shifted from laughter to the cold weight of what the world had taken. I didn't say anything, just reached over and closed the flaps again. We set that one aside, didn't open it again. Another box had a pair of heated slippers that ran off a USB plug. I joked about dragging a car battery into the cage just to try them. Maya found a mug warmer plate that matched. I bet people use these at desks, all day, just to keep coffee warm while they didn't drink it. I nodded. We used to have everything. Too much, she said. Then she held up a stuffed sloth with a Valentine's heart sewn into its hands and made it kiss the side of my head. This was somebody's last-minute apology gift. I took the sloth and gave it a seat at the corner of the table. He's management now, overseeing operations. There was something good about hearing our own voices without whispering, speaking at a regular tone, knowing there were walls around us, that the tarp held, that the air outside the break room was still. The warehouse was fragile, but in that moment, it gave us enough space to remember we weren't just survivors. We were people who used to walk through aisles like this for fun, order garbage off apps, complain about shipping delays, laugh about packaging, fill apartments with things we didn't need. We didn't open every box. Some we just shook, guessed the contents, set them aside like future mystery bags. But we did find some items that went straight into our survival gear. A pair of rechargeable headlamps with intact cords, 3 thermal socks still vacuum sealed, and an old emergency NOAA radio with a hand crank that still clicked when spun. The battery pack was missing, but we'd make do. Maya found a handheld fan with a spritz function and nearly cried laughing. Oh man, this thing. I used to see people with these in the park, just walking around misting their faces like royalty. You sure it wasn't just the rich sweating alcohol? Probably. For hours, we just stayed in that space, digging through what was left of the pre-collapse world. Some of it made us laugh. Some of it made us stare too long at the ceiling. A few boxes we didn't open at all, knowing we weren't ready to see what was inside. That was fine. Near the end, Maya sat back and looked at the pile of open boxes, scattered bubble wrap, foam peanuts, and half-unwrapped impulse buys. She said, "You know, this whole place, it's like a time capsule for a world that didn't think anything bad could happen." I nodded. It's not even that they didn't plan. It's that they didn't believe. Thought everything could be solved with next-day delivery. We left the room as it was. No cleaning up, no taping boxes shut. Just stood and stretched and walked the hallway back to the cage slowly, like we had been to a birthday party that ended without a goodbye. The building felt different now. Still dangerous, but not in that immediate way. We knew the risks. We accepted them. But we had one more day. One more. We spent most of that evening in silence, sitting just outside the cage door, our backs against opposite racks. The air was cold but still. The sound traps hadn't moved. There was no distant dragging, no coughs, no banging from the docks. It had been nearly 36 hours since the last sign of another human in the warehouse. We didn't trust it, but we took it. I used a bit of twine and duct tape to reinforce the rear wall panel, then cut strips of plastic wrap into cords and tied them across the overhead beams above the entry to create a passive noise trap. It wouldn't stop anyone, but it would give us a half-second warning. That was enough. Maya opened one of the smaller boxes we'd carried from the break room. Inside were 4 mismatched holiday candles, battery-operated with faux flicker. They ran off button cells, and somehow one of them still worked. She set it in a cup on a tote lid and watched the dim yellow pulse. "Better than fire," she said, stretching her legs. I agreed, though something about the fake flicker made the cage feel haunted, not warm. But it beat nothing. That night we didn't sleep in shifts. We made that mistake only once before, back when we were sheltering in an old electronics repair shop near the train yard in Linden. A locked door didn't mean safety, but this time we both gave in, both too tired to play the long game of pretending one of us was fully alert. We pulled the totes tighter around the bedding zone, jammed the carts against the cage door, and curled in, each holding our weapons under thin fleece. I don't know how long I was out before the light hit. Not from inside, from the far edge of the warehouse. South side, behind the outbound racks. It wasn't bright enough to hit our eyes directly, but the faint reflection off the mezzanine wall made it unmistakable. White, flickering, and erratic. Someone had turned on something. Headlamp, flashlight, maybe an LED lantern. It only lasted a few seconds before going dark again, but it was enough to snap us both awake. Maya whispered. That wasn't a sensor, that was handheld. I nodded and sat up, easing my coat on while reaching for the crowbar. I slipped the radio into my pocket, powered off. We didn't turn on any of our own lights, just listened. Then the noise came. Metal on metal, something heavy falling. A shelf. No, too sharp. More like a tool tray or a rolling cart tipping. Then feet, not running, shuffling. More than one set. At least 3, maybe 4 people. A voice, then a grunt, then silence again. I held my breath and looked at Maya. She'd already strapped on her boots. We didn't argue about it. We had to see. If someone was moving through the racks that close to our fallback cage, we had 2 options. Leave now or confirm the threat. We moved low along the west side wall, staying close to the broken returns bins, where foam packaging still lined the floor and dampened our steps. I kept one eye on the dark, the other on the path I'd memorized over the last week. Every squeaky spot, every cold vent that made noise if you brushed past it. At the corner of aisle 22, we paused. Maya leaned slightly to look around a rack post, then pulled back quickly, whispering, "Someone's dragging a tote. Big guy, camo jacket, has something slung over his back, bag or a long weapon." I peeked. She was right. He moved slow but deliberate. Not stumbling, not scared. Behind him, another person. Shorter, maybe a teen or small woman, wrapped in a dirty orange poncho. They were pulling what looked like a homemade cart of gear through the racks like they owned the place. I couldn't see any infected. No footsteps that matched the undead gait. But something was wrong. They weren't looking around. They weren't clearing corners. They were just walking. Confident. Too confident. That kind of body language only came from people who had done this before, who thought they had control, or people who had been here longer than we realized. That's when the third one appeared, off to the side, skinny, with a long pipe in one hand and a duffel on his back. He moved faster, almost pacing ahead like a scout. He stopped at one of the tool bins, dug through it, then motioned to the others. They didn't speak, just nodded. I pulled Maya back with a gentle hand on her arm and whispered, "They know this layout. They're either residents or raiders." Her jaw tightened. She glanced back down the aisle, judging distance. Then came the worst part, the flicker again, but this time not from their light, from our side, the break room hallway. Something had been left on, or maybe triggered. A sensor. We had closed everything, covered vents, sealed leaks, but light still bled through a corner of the door as if something had moved inside. We didn't wait to confirm. We turned and doubled back toward our cage. We reached it in 2 minutes, faster than ever before. Inside, we grabbed our packs, zipped up gear, rolled the sleeping tarp tight, and shouldered what we could carry. I reached up, pulled the fallback map off the wall, and stuffed it into my jacket. Maya stuffed our water bottles into the side pouches. We both moved fast but quiet. The cage was compromised now. Not physically, but logically. If the group was moving that confidently through the space, and the break room had been entered, or at least disturbed, then it was only a matter of time before we were found. Best case, they just wanted supplies. Worst case, they were clearing zones for takeover. We slipped out through the south side rack path, the one we hadn't used since day 2 because it was too exposed. But right now, it gave us the clearest shot to the outbound docks. The plan wasn't to fight. It wasn't even to engage. It was to get outside and disappear into the yard, circle around the building's blind spots, and put as much distance between us and whatever was walking the floor now. We made it halfway before the alarm tripped. It wasn't ours, someone else's. A makeshift clatter of cans on a string rigged to an open rack. It echoed hard through the building, not far from the returns section. I didn't recognize the sound, which meant it hadn't been ours. And that told me someone else had done the same thing we had. Built warning systems. only theirs had just been tripped. The voices started then, not loud but urgent. Two men, yelling in harsh tones, telling someone to back up, then something else. A growl, not human, then a scream. We broke into a jog, feet hitting bare concrete, packs bouncing. I heard a door slam behind us. Probably the mezzanine stairs. Something, or someone, had panicked. Maya glanced back, then kept going. We made it to the southern dock door, the one with the warped exit bar. I slammed into it with a shoulder, and it gave way. Cold air hit hard, wind sharp with dirt and ash from a nearby yard fire. I pulled my hood up and grabbed the handle of the nearest cart. We didn't head for the trailers. That was where they'd search first. We slid behind the stacked pallets, moved through the outer fencing, and slipped through a corner breach in the perimeter that I had spotted days ago but never used. Outside, the world hadn't changed. Just us. A different phase of survival. No longer protected, no longer hidden. We'd squeezed everything we could from that place. Maya didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. We walked fast, parallel to Gulf Avenue, past old distribution lots and smashed storefronts. Only when we ducked into an abandoned bus shelter did she finally speak. That place gave us everything, she said, brushing hair out of her face with a shaking hand. Warmth, water, quiet, all of it. And we still had to run. She didn't say it with anger. It was just tired honesty. The kind that hits when you're breathing cold air through your nose and your legs haven't stopped moving since before dawn. I didn't say anything back. She was right. That warehouse was the closest thing to stability we'd found in months, and we'd left it like burglars fleeing a scene that stopped being ours. The second light hit the floor. The bus shelter was glass on 3 sides, most of it broken. We crouched low behind the steel bench and kept our heads beneath the top ledge. The street was quiet. Nothing moved on Gulf Avenue, but that didn't mean we were alone. You had to listen longer out here. Wait for the wrong kind of silence to break. The infected didn't always announce themselves. I reached into my coat and pulled out the map we'd sketched back in the cage. Most of it was building layouts and marked resource bins from the warehouse. But in the margins, I'd scribbled a crude route heading west, Goethals Road, then a cut toward the turnpike feeder lanes. If we could make it past the old maintenance depot near the bridge, we had a chance to slip toward Elizabeth. Risky, but better than staying near the docks. We'll cut behind the warehouse fencing, stick close to the old gravel lot, I said, pointing with a gloved finger. There's a commercial HVAC supplier near the tracks. Last time I was here, they had a delivery garage that backed into a blind alley. If it's not looted, we can hold up for the night. Maya gave me a look. And if it is looted? I folded the map. Then we keep walking. We stayed crouched for another 5 minutes, just listening. Distant metal creaks echoed from somewhere north, likely the rail yard. No screams, no growls, just the cold wind running through glass and broken chain link. We moved out. The route to the fence line was slow. We stuck to narrow alleys and moved in the shadow of long-forgotten warehouses. Most of the buildings here were old loading bays and light industry, doors chained, windows busted, all stripped down months ago. But the roads were wide and mostly clear. That was both a blessing and a risk. Easier to walk, easier to be seen. The deeper we went, the thicker the mist became. A low, pale haze started to settle across the gravel. Cold front from the nearby water maybe, or just moisture trapped in the concrete maze. It wasn't blinding, but it blurred edges. Maya tightened her scarf and kept her hand on the tire iron. I adjusted the strap of my pack and loosened the crowbar from its sling. We reached the edge of the HVAC depot after 20 minutes of steady movement. It looked intact from a distance. Sheet metal walls, old company logos, 2 delivery bays wide open with gates half raised. No obvious movement. The lot had 2 old cargo vans rotting in place, both tagged with graffiti from the early collapse. We approached slow, from the right side, cutting across the grass. Inside, the place had been looted once, maybe twice. Empty shelving units, scattered packing foam, a few busted tools. But it wasn't burned, and the inner office still had its doors. We checked the back corner and found a break room with no windows and a water line still trickling from a bent pipe. It wasn't shelter, but it would work for a meal and a regroup. We locked the inner door with a bent rod and settled in to eat. That's when we heard it. Muffled footsteps. Not human. Uneven gait. Multiple sets. Outside. At first, I thought it might be the group from the warehouse, somehow tracking us. But then came the wheeze. That wet, sucking breath you only hear from throats that don't belong to the living anymore. Maya stood without a word, already at the door, checking the gap beneath. I was at her side in 2 seconds, crowbar in hand. 4 shadows moved past the outer roll-up bay. Slow, dragging. One turned toward the office wall, pressed a shoulder to the sheet metal. I could hear it snuffling at the air. Another growled and scraped something against the side of the building. Then the worst happened. Something inside the HVAC depot, a knocked-over pipe maybe, or a tension strap finally snapping, made a loud metallic ping from the other side of the building. The sound echoed, bounced off the walls. All 4 shadows stopped, then moved faster, not running, but alert now, no longer wandering. We backed away from the door, quiet, low. I grabbed the handle of the interior supply closet and twisted it open. Storage shelves, nothing useful, but enough room to hide. Maya looked at me, frowned, then shook her head. No good. Dead end if they breach. I agreed. We needed a route out. Fast. There was only one way, the rear maintenance hallway. Narrow, cluttered, but with an exit door we hadn't checked yet. It was a gamble, but better than being pinned. We moved fast, just as the first infected shoulder hit the outer door and made it rattle. Through the hallway we went, ducking past metal conduit and fallen vents. The door at the end was rusted but not sealed. I yanked the bar hard. It groaned open, and that's when we realized the mistake. It wasn't a way out. It was a fenced courtyard, fully enclosed, 15 feet tall on every side. Dumpsters, HVAC units, no exit, dead end. Behind us, the door slammed as one of the infected hit it again. We had seconds. Maya didn't speak. She grabbed a length of pipe off the ground and turned back toward the hallway. I joined her. We lined up just behind a stack of broken shelving, crouched low, weapons ready. The first one came through like a falling animal. Arms swinging, mouth open, male, mid-30s, jaw torn from the side. I didn't wait. I brought the crowbar down across the collarbone, then again into the skull. It dropped. Another followed immediately, this one faster. It lunged. Maya pivoted, jammed the pipe into its mouth, twisted, then kicked its legs out from under it. I finished it with a swing to the back of the head. Third one came through crawling. It had lost a leg somewhere, maybe torn at the knee. Still tried to bite. I pinned it with a boot and smashed the crowbar down in a single clean motion. The last one took longer. Bigger, shoulders wide. Military jacket. Probably turned during a supply run months ago. Strong. It grabbed Maya's arm and almost pulled her sideways. She screamed. Not loud, but sharp. I shoved it hard with the bar, cracked it in the ribs, then swung again. Maya broke its grip and staggered back. I finished it, breath ragged, hands shaking. We stood still for a full minute after the last one stopped moving. Watching, listening, nothing followed. No bite, no cuts, just bruises, blood on the gloves, not on us. Maya leaned against the wall, eyes closed. They weren't wandering, they were tracking. I nodded, hands still on the crowbar. Maybe followed the smell, or heard the cart outside. She opened her eyes, or maybe they came from the building next door. We didn't check. We moved the bodies to one side of the courtyard, stacked them behind the HVAC fan units. No time to bury, no need. They wouldn't get up again. We rinsed our gloves with what little water we had left and used the rest to clean our boots. Then we packed. We couldn't stay. The depot was done. Not just because of the dead, but because it was compromised. We'd fought. We'd made noise. Anyone in a 3-block radius would have heard the scuffle, the screaming, the bodies hitting metal. We stepped back into the street, the fog thicker now, hugging the cracked pavement and rolling around the rusted edges of chain-link fences like smoke without fire. I tightened the strap across my chest, adjusted the weight of the crowbar in my hand, and motioned west. Maya didn't ask where we were going. At that point, it didn't matter. Forward was safer than standing still. We followed a narrow utility path that ran parallel to the rail line, barely more than a gravel shoulder beside a chain of small warehouses and parking lots. The ground was wet with condensation, and every step felt like it echoed further than it should. We walked in silence for almost an hour, only stopping once to duck beneath an overturned trailer when we heard movement in the next yard over. 3 slow, slumped shadows pushing through the fog. They didn't see us. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe we just didn't register as noise against the backdrop of wind and rust. Around midday we reached the fence. It was older than I remembered, rusted through in places, but still tall enough to make a bad climb dangerous. On the other side was what we'd been moving toward all this time, the remains of the Goethals Bridge feeder road. Beyond that, the rail junction and the marsh access path. From there, the route west was real, long, exposed, and full of uncertainty, but real. The fence gate was locked. The old chain looped and twisted 4 times around a bent post. I pulled it taut, felt the weakness in the middle. 2 tugs with the crowbar and it gave, the rusted links snapping louder than I liked. Maya winced but said nothing. She kept watch while I pulled the chain free and opened the gate wide enough for us to slip through. The air on the other side felt no different, but it mattered. It was the boundary. It meant we weren't going back. We moved through the rail yard slowly, crossing between dead train cars and abandoned gravel piles. The tracks had warped from heat and time, and weeds had punched through the ballast in places. To the left was the marsh, low and silent. To the right, the open yard that ran all the way to the turnpike. It would be more exposed out there, but we needed a clear route. Anything with blind corners or fencing could box us in again, and we weren't in the mood to repeat the depot. Around mid-afternoon, we stopped near the edge of a flooded loading zone. Someone had pitched a tent there at some point. Blue tarp, weathered poles, a fire pit made from crushed aluminum cans, and a scorched grate. There were bones in the ashes. Not human, probably squirrel or bird. Whatever they'd been eating, they were long gone now. We checked the tent but found nothing useful. 1 ripped sleeping bag, a shoe missing its pair, and a broken power bank with frayed wires. Maya sat down on the curb and drank from her bottle, the last full one. I looked down the road, trying to make out the skyline through the haze. Elizabeth was somewhere out there, and maybe beyond that, something stronger. We'd heard the rumors, guard stations, ferry camps, even a private security zone near the old refinery site. We didn't know what was real anymore. Most of it probably wasn't. She didn't look up when she said it. "You think it's worth it heading there?" I didn't answer immediately. I crouched beside the tent, picked at the edge of the tarp where moss had grown. After a long moment I said, "I don't think anything's worth it, but I think sitting still is worse." She nodded, took another sip, then stood. "Then let's keep walking." We walked until our legs went numb. No sign of infected, no other survivors. Just empty trucks, shattered warehouses, faded road signs, and the occasional burned-out van on its side. We passed a mural someone had painted on a wall in spray paint. 3 words, "You were here," underneath, a tally of hash marks. 57 of them, maybe more, but rain had washed some away. That night, we camped in a hollow under a collapsed overpass. The underside was dry enough to shelter our packs. We took turns sleeping again. Maya went first, curled up under a sheet of reflective insulation we'd stripped from a gutted van. I sat in the dark, listening to the wind through the bridge girders, the sound of my own breath muffled by the scarf over my mouth. The quiet wasn't peace. It was just absence. The difference mattered. When it was my turn to rest, I dreamed about the break room. Not the fight, not the escape. Just the boxes, the dumb gifts, the flicker of battery candles. That one sloth plush sitting on the edge of the table like it owned the place. A false moment of comfort, then nothing. By the time we reached the Elizabeth perimeter, the fog had started to burn off. The marsh had given way to cracked roads and old drainage paths. We stayed off the main lanes and hugged the edge of a broken shopping plaza until we spotted movement near a collapsed sign. Not infected, a person. Grey hoodie, backpack, moving fast. We dropped low behind a rusted newsstand and watched. He didn't look armed. No weapon in sight. But he was scanning rooftops like someone who knew the rules. We didn't call out, just waited until he passed, then moved the opposite direction. By sunset, we found a loading dock behind a distribution center that had been partially barricaded. Someone had piled crates, pallets, and scrap metal around the dock opening. No lights, no sound, but the way it was built told us it wasn't random. Someone had tried to hold this place, or maybe still did. We waited until nightfall before we approached, scouted for motion, watched for reflections. Maya tapped my shoulder and pointed at a pile of debris near the east wall. A sign, painted on cardboard. Safe for now. Not a promise, just a fact. Maybe old, maybe true. We crawled through a side breach in the pallet wall and entered slow, flashlight covered. No voices, just a long open space with overturned shelving and half-sealed crates. Toward the back, someone had lit a single battery lantern inside a milk crate. Beside it, 2 sleeping bags, both empty, water jugs, a can of beans with the lid peeled open but only half eaten. I whispered, "They're not far." Maya whispered back, "We leave now, or we wait and ask." We waited. 10 minutes later, the door creaked. A woman entered, alone, probably in her 40s, hair tied back, jacket stained with soot. She stopped when she saw us. Didn't reach for anything. Just raised her hand. Not a threat, not a welcome. Just a sign of presence. "You scavengers or staying?" she asked. Voice flat, tired. Maya answered, "Moving west. Just needed a roof." The woman nodded. "Don't take food. Don't block the exits. We're heading out before sunrise." I nodded back. "Fair trade." We spent the night on the far end of the dock, near the broken vending machine. We didn't talk. No introductions. No shared memories of how the world used to be. Just 3 people, separated by crates, trusting each other only as far as tomorrow. That was enough. At dawn, we packed our gear, nodded once at the woman, and slipped through the opening in the wall. Back into the street. Back into movement. We'd lost the warehouse. Lost our footing. Lost the illusion of safe spaces. But we hadn't lost the only thing that mattered. Forward motion. A sense that maybe, just maybe, something still lived beyond the next fence. We didn't say it, but we both knew it. We weren't done yet. And that's where we'll stop for now. Thanks for listening till the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me how the story hit you. What moments worked, what didn't, and what you'd want to hear next. And a big thank you to everyone supporting the channel, especially with extra membership. Carlos Herrera, Luca Mod, Jadala, The Great Anywho, Madam Midnight. You keep this project alive. Until next time, Survivor. Jack's Nightmares signing off.